What's up, my leprechaun pill bros? Leprechaun. Just a reminder here from Lord of the Games. Get yoked, eat protein, and don't be like this guy. But yeah, I am not as big or as jacked as I need to be, and I probably never will be. Once upon a time, in 2023, a young Caucasian man with dreads came onto the scene on YouTube and talked about hard gaining. Talked about the struggle of not gaining enough muscle, just struggling with putting on size and just feeling small in his body. This was how I felt, and this was after around 2.5 years of training. I can say I came in at a point in my life where I was really shook with I want to say body dysmorphia, but even now I don't want to use the term body dysmorphia because I feel was I even big enough to have body dysmorphia, or was that just reality? Fuck, bro. Shut up about body dysmorphia. You're just small, bro. I was really afraid of someone being like, you don't have body dysmorphia, you're just tiny. I remember at that point, I think summer 2023, I went to Ibiza for a week, right? I cut down really heavily for it, and I got really shredded and had abs and stuff in Ibiza. And I remember I got there and I took photos. In my head, I just looked malnourished as fuck. I was just like, who's this fucking African immigrant who hasn't eaten in 10 weeks? Fresh off the boat looking ass, fucking dreadlocks, bitch. I looked tiny, basically. I looked really skinny, and it was out of proportion with how I saw myself training for that whole year. Where I was like, I swear to God, the gym mirrors must do this on purpose. In the gym mirrors, you kind of look at yourself and you're like, okay, you feel big, you feel that you've some size on you. This was the first time that I ever took photos that weren't camera photos, where I was third person kind of taking photos. Anyway, my heart sank, and honestly, it ruined my entire week. It ruined the rest of my holiday. Obviously, I never stopped training after that, which is a good thing. And I went back and I was in the middle of the cut. My plan was to keep cutting a bit more and more until I got really, really lean. As soon as I got back from Ibiza, straight to a bulk, screw that. Went fuck the rest of the cut. Committed myself to getting big and pushing past whatever genetic limitations that I had, or that I thought I had. Once I got home, I fixed and kind of focused on two main things, and that I've spoken about these things before. One of them being I focused my technique. I focused my training technique on specifically slow, controlled contractions of the muscle, because I did notice the last while of my training at that point, it had been less focused and more so just getting the weight up and down, using a lot of momentum and bounce. When I'd curl, or when I'd bench, or whenever I'd do anything, or when I'd lat pull down or something, I'd just kind of let it go, and I wouldn't control the weight as I raised it. I wouldn't focus on the eccentric at all, which is actually the most important part. So I focused on slow controlled contractions, and a slow eccentric especially, because I realized all my lists before, I was using a lot of momentum and not doing complete reps and complete contractions. So that was one thing. Second thing I focused on was protein. Yes, by that point, 2.5 years in, I wasn't counting protein, and I'd severely underestimated how much I was under eating in protein. Because before, I just count calories and aim for my calorie targets when it came to my bulk and cut, and I was like, oh, I'll probably get enough protein, I'll have a shake or a bar here and there, and the rest of my food will do it. No, it's actually really hard to get 2 grams of protein per kg of body weight. It's actually super hard. You have to track that shit. And once I started tracking it, it became a full-time job to try and get protein, and it became a full-time job to reach those targets. From that point, I think I gained a significant amount of muscle, and I think obviously I'm always going to want to gain more, but I feel I got to a point where I'm not as doomer pilled about my genetics or my being a hard gainer as I was at the time. So, are you a hard gainer? I feel for most people watching, I want to say no. Here's the thing, right? When you're a newbie into the gym, right? When you first got into the gym, first ever started lifting weights, was there a significant difference when you first started? Did you put on a good bit of size when you first went in, first 6 months or so? Did you feel a significant difference in muscle mass or width, or the width of your arms or something? Or when you could palpate your chest, could you feel a significant mass there that wasn't there before. If you got that newbie gains that were noticeable, then you're probably not a hard gainer. You're probably an easy gainer or a normal gainer. I feel like a lot of guys will get to a point like I got to, where it was like they're a few years in, they're not getting newbie gains anymore, and they're struggling to put on mass after that. And instead of kind of looking at what they were doing and how they can optimize their training better, they just think, oh, I'm struggling, I've hit my limit, I can't put on muscle. And it's just not true. So for most people who think they're hard gainers but aren't really, here's some things that can stop you from being a pseudo hard gainer. Number one is just training properly. Just train and lift weights properly. Target the right muscles. Target the muscles you want to target. And obviously do the contractions properly. And like I spoke of plenty of times before, slow, controlled contractions, slow, eccentric, get a full stretch on the eccentric, make sure the form is good form and you're targeting the right muscle and not using an accessory muscle when you're lifting. You don't want your traps to be more activated than your delts when you're doing lateral raises, or when you're doing like lat pull down. You don't want to feel your mid back or your traps more than you feel your lats.
You don't want your rotator cuff taking everything when you're doing an incline fucking dumbbell press.
So yeah, target the right muscles, right form, and slow control contractions. That's all under kind of training properly. You might think you're training properly, but if you're anything like me a couple of years ago, you probably were slacking on that a little bit, and you need to perfect the form and perfect the rhythm. Make sure you're using your actual muscle contractions and not just momentum or bounce. Remember, you're not a weightlifter. You're a muscle contractor. Doesn't matter if you actually get the weight up and down if you're not getting the right contraction. Maximal contractions in the muscles that you want to target. Number two, we're talking about intensity. So that's like basically just going to failure, or as close to failure as possible. Might not be ideal to go to failure in every set, but like you want to be like within 1 or 2 reps of failure. You put on muscle easy. You look to the barbell and you put on a bit of muscle. You're not a hard gainer if you experience that, essentially. Like really easy gains at the start. But after some time, once those newbie gains are maxed out, you're gonna need to be pushing to your like failure, to high levels of intensity to get the same kind of gains, to get the same kind of muscle growth. It can vary from person to person. Some people reach that point where to put on muscle, they're going to really need to up the intensity and really go to failure as many times as possible. Some people hit that point earlier, some people hit that point later, where it's like, okay, they can kind of coast and put on muscle for a lot longer. It just depends on the person. Sometimes it's 6 months, sometimes it's a year even. But yeah, intensity. Third thing is recovery. So if you're finding yourself in a lot of pain after exercise, that can be a good thing, especially if you're first starting off. You're gonna get a good bit of DOMs. If you find yourself taking too long to recover, like 3 days plus to recover, and you're still in pain, and even after you've been a couple of times and it's no longer DOMs, you're just sore after every exercise, maybe you're not recovering properly. And as I hope you know at this stage, recovery is what actually builds the muscle. You don't build muscle when you're actually training. When you're training, you're tearing down the muscle, and the recovery is what repairs the muscle, and it repairs it. And the idea is the muscle is going to be repaired bigger than what it used to. If you're not recovering properly, the muscle repair isn't happening properly, you're not going to get bigger, essentially. There's a number of reasons for this. One, you're not giving enough breaks. You're not giving enough like rest days or breaks in between whenever you train a muscle group. So if you're like training quads one day and then the next day you train quads again, it's like, that's stupid. First of all, stupid just from a life quality sense, like fucking quads twice. Like if it was pecs, it was bench, I'd understand, but quads. But from a recovery point of view, you want to give a muscle group time to recover. You want to give it like at least 2-3 days. Another reason why you may not be recovering properly is too high cortisol in your system. You're too stressed out. Cortisol counteracts the effects of testosterone. I don't know too much about the science of it. I think it's something to do with the fatty acids are all going towards cortisol rather than towards testosterone. I don't know. I read into this, but I don't remember the specifics at the moment. But essentially, cortisol bad, cortisol stress bad. Stress means no gains. Happy? Do you know what other than stress and leading a stressful life, what also increases cortisol? A lack of sleep. Yes, has to be done. Am I going to do it? Am I going to get better at it? Probably not, but, you know, we're working on it. We're working on it. Fourth thing is diet. One of the other things that I said I kind of laser focused on and made sure that I was getting my protein in. Protein is what your body uses to repair the muscle. Like, your muscles are basically just amino acids, essentially. And you need to rebuild the muscle and make it grow. You need amino acids from your proteins that you eat. So you need at least 2 grams of protein per kg of body weight. Yada, yada, yada. To build muscle per day. Your body is constantly fighting muscle catabolism, the opposite of anabolism. So catabolism is going on constantly. If you're training and your muscles are trying to repair with amino acids and they're not getting enough from the food, they're going to break down other muscles to repair these muscles. So you're essentially going to be not putting on muscle because everything's just going to be... You get the idea. It's like if someone smashed a hole in this wall and they were like, okay, we need cement, but like all the cement had gone extinct, so we don't have any cement to repair the wall. What your body's going to do is like, okay, well, we need to repair this somehow. Let's take a little bit of cement from somewhere else and then just slap it on here and fix it. And it's like, okay, it's repaired. You're probably not going to repair it thicker than it was before because it's like, okay, I'm going to be needing to take more cement from somewhere else, and that's not ideal. This one is at where it was at before, so we'll just leave it there. But also, there's less cement everywhere else. Did that make sense? I don't know. I don't care. Carbs, I mean... You don't really need to track this one too. I mean, you can if you want, but I feel like there's enough carbs in the environment anyway. There's enough carbs in like the average person's diet that it's like, okay, you're definitely getting enough. Ideally, you want to have carbs pre and post workout, you know, especially post workout, because that's, you know, the anabolic window. People are always, oh, you need like a high protein post workout meal for the anabolic window, which is like 4 hours after you work out, which is true, but carbs are actually a really important part of that post-workout meal as well. I'll explain why. During those 4 hours after you work out, during that anabolic window, that's when your muscles have the highest glucose sensitivity. Muscles absorb glucose the most, and glucose carbs are basically glucose. So you want to feed your body glucose during that time so that they absorb it the most into the muscles, and that's what gives the muscles energy to do repair, things like that, and that's where your protein comes in. Another thing you can do is get tested, see if everything's working inside there, like, you know, your internal mechanisms, see if you're all out of whack and shit. Test your cortisol levels, are they too high? And if they're too high, why are they too high? Are you too stressed? You know, are you in a toxic relationship? Can you even get any bitches? Are you a schizophrenic retard? Test your hormone levels, your testosterone levels, basically, and find ways you can increase those, like vitamin D, sunlight, take more supplements, get all the bloods done and see what you're lacking, and then supplement from there on in. That could be an issue you're facing as well. That's causing you to be a pseudo hardgainer. Now, if you've done all that and you're still struggling, which some people are, some people just can't do it. They just can't put on muscle. So as I said, if you're that kind of guy who doesn't really get mad newbie gains, like you start going to the gym, you go with a friend and like you train for a little bit and like all of a sudden your friend's like packing on muscle, all the girls are looking at him and you still kind of look like the same fucking 12-year-old boy that you walked in as. I'm just kidding. Girls aren't going to be looking at you. It'll be other men, essentially, just eyeing you up. But yeah, he's got the biceps, he's getting all the appreciation, the admiration, and you're just there, you're just kind of like meh. Like, I mean, there's a little bit of something there. You've added like maybe 4 kg. Actually, 4 kg would probably be good enough. But like your friends really tripled the size in like 6 months and you're bare, like you look like you're just beginning to hit puberty again, and you're training the same, or you could probably even be training better than him and eating better than him, or you've been training for a year and then you've a friend who just has, you know, those natural West African genetics, and he comes in and he, like, you know, inhales some of the air in the gym and all of a sudden he's actually bigger than you now. He sat on the changing room gym toilet, and he's actually gotten more gains than you've gotten in the last 6 months. If you're in that situation, then you might be a true hard gainer. And just some people are. Genetics are unfair. Some people are just born Somali or Indian. Just kidding. Don't give up. There's still hope for you. You can still get big. You can still do it. All you need is a bit of trend. JK, I do not endorse the use of any injectable or non-injectable hormone treatments. Now, I can't say I'm speaking with too much experience from this, but just from the little bit that I've had a look around to kind of see and kind of impart some wisdom onto some baby gainers over here. A few ways to work around this. I've heard technique, you need really good, but not just proper technique. I'm talking flawless, perfect technique, to a level beyond what the biggest guy in your gym is probably doing. The average lifter who gains muscle probably doesn't need to do as perfect a technique as you as a hard gainer will probably need to do. A lot of science-based lifting. So as much as we like to cringe at those guys being oh, that's actually not the most optimal exercise for maximal muscle fiber recruitment. If you're a true hard gainer, you might have to be one of those guys, because that's what you might need to do to get any level of gains. You need to become a nerdy science-based lifter. You might have to do the weird special exercises that specifically target maximal muscle fiber recruitment in whatever muscle group you're taking, and completely minimize any accessories that might be targeted or that might be recruited as well. Regular exercises like the pull-up or the lat pull-down or the bench press just might not cut it for you, because your genetics just don't allow it to. For some reason your body doesn't want to recruit the muscle fibers of your lats or your chest or your lateral delts or whatever, and whenever you do any of those conventional exercises, your body just doesn't want to recruit them, so they'll recruit more of the accessories as much as possible and other shit that you don't want to necessarily recruit. So you could end up in a situation where you're doing lateral raises, but at the end you don't even feel your lats. You're feeling more of your traps and your neck or your kind of mid back or something, you're weird, or you're doing a pull-up and it's was that supposed to train my lats? My lats are fine. My mid back is kind of sore, my shoulders, my biceps are kind of sore, but I don't feel my lats. And that's because your genetics are shit. So that's when you get into the very, very specific, very niche isolation exercises that will target and will force your body to recruit those muscles that it doesn't want to. So the very technical science-based exercises, the ones that when you do and you're okay, fuck, now I can finally feel my lats, now I can finally feel my lateral raises, because those exercises make sure that your body has no choice but to activate those muscles and make sure that no other accessories are activated. I think one of those is the pull aparts, the ones you do with the resistance bands. I think a few of them have resistance bands involved in some way or another in them. They're the kind of science-based optimal exercises that kind of, they're not the conventional ones. They look like pussy exercises, and it's ironically people usually think they are, because it's always the smallest guys doing them. But the smallest guys are only doing them because they're hard gainers, and those are the most optimal for the hard gainers. If a guy with good genetics did them, they'd probably gain faster than if they did the conventional pull-ups or bench or whatever. But yeah, those pussy exercises are in theory the most optimal apparently. And then for technique, you're going to need to pay extra attention to your technique. It means you're going to have to prioritize exercises that are easiest to nail down the technique, again, to a perfect level. More perfect than what the average lifter is probably going to need to do. Which means, unfortunately, some exercises that might be really cool, that might be very popular, that might work for most people, just might not cut it for you if you're a true hard gainer. Because those normal people, those who were born non-cursed, they don't need insanely perfect technique to grow. They need adequate technique. It's fair enough for them to grow. If they're really genetically blessed, if they're an Aryan god or a West African Usain Bolt kind of fucking Giga Tyrone, then they might even do shit technique and they'll still grow. But you need flawless technique, and some exercises you just might not be able to do flawless technique. So you need to prioritize ones where you can do flawless, science-based technique, where every rep is the exact same. Your form is basically non-flinching for even a second. God, that what was that? That was sus as fuck. Next thing, you need to hit like volume and rep ranges where you actually feel sore, and you get DOMs. If you've not worked out in a while, you actually feel sore and you feel like, okay, I need to actually recover from this. So volume matters for you more than it would for someone who's not a hard gainer. So like, yeah, lifting more essentially, duh. So I think research shows that like higher volume, so more sets, essentially, that's what higher volume is. More sets works better for hard gainers. So around 2 to 4 sets per muscle group per session. So in one gym session, when you go in, you want to target that same muscle group around 2 to 4 times. Because the thing is with being a hard gainer is you will recover faster. So you need more volume in order to induce damage. That's going to require more recovery, which is more growth essentially. Because of faster recovery, apparently you can also train the same muscle group 3 to 4 times a week. The golden rule for most lifters is like, oh, don't train a muscle group more than 2 times a week, you know, you're 13 to 20 sets per week for a muscle group or whatever. But if you're a hard gainer, you've the faster recovery, you can train muscle group 3 to 4 times a week. You can up those number of sets per week. As a result of the high recovery, hard gainers usually need more variation in their exercises, so they'll need to change it up more often. So for a lot of hard gainers, an exercise is going to start feeling less effective and they're not going to be getting as much of a pump from it as they would when they first started it. Because of recovery, they adapt quicker to exercises. So it's like they'll have to kind of change up their technique or change up the exercises they do more often than like the normal person. An easy gainer could probably do the same exercise all his life, and he will continue getting return on the lifts and continue getting more and more gains. Hard gainers, they'll reach that block where an exercise will stop being as rewarding much earlier, and they'll have to change it up, go to something else, then go to something else, and then maybe back to the original one again. It's like they're going to constantly have to kind of shock their muscles because their muscles just don't want to grow. So yeah, that's the plight of the hard gainer. Basically, don't do what I did. I don't think I'm a hard gainer. I mean, I'm tall, which means I'm probably like I'm 6'4", 6'3", which really freakishly long arms, which means I basically like it's gonna take more for me to look big than someone who's short. But also it means I can actually pack on more muscle over my entire lifetime because there's more of me to pack onto. So we'll take what we can get. I got the shitty East African genetics, but I'm also tall. You can't have it all. Still gonna fuck you, bitch. Good night.